Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to explore a new feature of LuBan String. If you Google 3D printed string art, you will see many examples on the internet. And I believe all of these string art were designed manually in a modeling software. The method that we are going to explore in LuBan today is an automatic method. And we are not going to explore very complex string design, but we are going to do something fairly simple like this one. So you open LuBan software and then you select any STL. I'm going to select a heart-shaped STL. And this is what we're going to design around. The new feature string is under mesh slicer. If you are an existing user of LuBan, you'll know that slicer is a function for generating G-code, turn 3D object into G-code so that a printer can print. And this function, slicer function, is currently compatible with FDM printer, not resin printer. In future, I may add a resin printer to this function as well. So let's go to slicer. And this is our original model in the original size. Let's enlarge it a little bit. The slicer function has many existing settings, such as printer, material, layer, adherent, support. And these are common settings to tune a slicer profile so that you can control how you are going to print it. The new function, the new feature is added as an option under the slicer method called string. By default, it is set to no. There won't be any string generated, so we can set it to yes. Once you click yes, LuBan will automatically generate a frame around it. You can select different shape. For example, no shape. I will talk about no shape in later half of the video. And usually we want a shape, a triangle, rectangle, square, pentagon, hexagon, octagon, as well as a circle. And you can set the frame to have a rounded angle, to have a rounded corner, so it looks more rounded. So it's just a different design option. You can also set frame clearance, the closest distance between the frame and your object. So if I set it to 20, the frame will be bigger. You can set the frame thickness. 4, you can set it to 2. You can also set it to 10. Any number as you wish. Let me set it to 4 as the default. And next, you can set different line patterns, the string patterns. This one is in the X direction. You can set in the Y direction, in the grid pattern. The grid pattern is alternating between X direction string and Y direction string in different layers. And you can also set to radial, in a radial spanning pattern. Lastly, you can tune the density in the XY plane, which is which is in the 2D plane. You can tune it to, for example, 10%. There will be more strings generated in one plane. The vertical density refers to the density in the Z direction. So if I go to Object, Select, now you can see more clearly the strings in Z direction. Let me use environment. So the shortcut key is F1, orthogonal projection. In orthogonal projection, it's easier to see how many layers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 layers. 6 layers of string corresponding to 5% density in Z direction. If we set it to 10, and hit the tab key. Select. The shortcut is keyboard key J and F1. Let's see, in X direction. You will see more strings in Z direction, a little bit more. Okay. So these are the main, excuse me, these are the main parameters that you can control how the strings would look like. I'm going to set it back to the default value. And maybe make it 10. So one of the questions that our users might want to ask is, I want the heart shape in a different orientation. For example, after printed, I want the heart shape to stand. And currently the heart shape is standing, but the strings are in a different orientation as what we usually see. You can easily change the orientation of the heart in the model tab, in the model option. I'm going to rotate it around x-axis for 90 degrees. Then the heart will be laid down. After you print it, you can put it vertically. Okay. For easier visualization, I'll rotate it negative 90 degrees, so it's facing downward. After you print it, you can move it, you can rotate it so it stands on the frame. Go to string, and let's use the Y direction pattern. And this is the pattern that you often see on the internet. It looks like a ring pattern going through the object. For now, you actually have finished designing the string, although there are a lot more technical details. One of the technical details that I would like to present to you is how are the string connected to the frame and to the object. On the internet, there is a video by 3D Printing Bunny, which shows how the string should be connected. Superficially, so I just enabled object select, and I selected the frame. And I'm going to cut it, use the clipping tool to clip into the plane, and then enable the edge so that we can see it more clearly. Then I'll rotate. That's the boundary of the frame. Okay, this is the boundary of the frame, the red line. As you can see, the strings are not just touching the boundary, it is penetrating into the boundary by some distance. In 3D Bunny's video, she explained clearly why you have to do that. If the strings are merely touching the boundary, you will get very loose printing and it can break easily. But if the strings are penetrating into the object frame and the object, you will have a very strong string because the two ends are embedded into the printed object. Similarly, we can look at the object. I'm going to select object, shortcut J. Select the object and use the clipping tool to clip inside. And go back. Maybe I should enable the edge. Okay, enable the edge. It's not that clear. Okay. Anyway, you get the idea. As you can see, the strings are not just touching the boundary of the heart shape. It actually goes inside. That's what I wanted to show you, the first detail. Then I'll make it, turn it back to a solid model. For now, we have finished designing our first string object. If you don't want to use LuBan slicer because it's a fairly new slicer, and there might be some slicer settings that doesn't exist in LuBan slicer, while they exist in your preferred slicer, such as Cura, Auga, or Pulsar slicer. You can do file export STL, which will export the content of whatever that is displayed on the screen as an STL file. And I'm going to call it hot string. Then you can open the STL in any slicer to slice it. When you slice it, ideally you would hope that each string would be captured by the slicer software, and ideally generating a one-pass print to print the overhang string. And using once you print it, there is no support. By the way, do not use support. You should print the string just as an overhanging line. Since both ends are connected to the object, it should be able to print without any problem. However, the slicer setting for capturing such strings are not easy to set. You have to set in LuBan slicer the nozzle size to the same nozzle size that you are going to use to print the strings. Second, you have to set the layer height to the same layer height that you are going to print the string. And then in your slicer, use the same setting. Even so, some algorithm may not pick up all the strings, and you may have some problems. You could do this, and you could do this in another option. Use LuBan slicer. When LuBan slicer generates G code that has the string structure, it will guarantee each string is covered by only one pass from the beginning to the end. So in that sense, to print and to generate and prepare string object, it is best to do it in the slicer function, not in other functions. So for example, I could do it in LuBan mesh LuBan function, but this is not the right place to put it because a lot of slicer settings are needed to generate the string and to print it. So let's go ahead and slice it in LuBan slicer. It will take a little while to slice it. And by the way, if you use a rounded corner frame, the slicing time is a little bit more. If you use, if the corner is not rounded, it will be quicker, faster to slice. In LuBan slicer, you get this type of display. I can set display one layer, and I'll drag along. At some layer, we should see the string. Okay, that's the one. Okay, wait, let me go one by one. Okay. As you can see, at the layer that has the string penetrates into the object, and the wall, the light blue color indicates the wall. The wall is penetrated by the string print. So this guarantees a firm bonding on both ends of the string. And if you use object select tool, you will see we have several objects: string object, infill object, which is the purple one, the wall object, and the brim, which is on the base. In LuBan slicer, you can also set the display to show all the upper layers, and this will show all the upper layers. I have changed the slicer display of LuBan. If you remember the previous version, it was showing everything in lines, and the current version, everything is shown actually in the surface mode. So you can see this more clearly. You can set to show all lower layers. That's all the lower layers below the current layer. And when you show everything, it's going to look like this. Okay, and then you can send it to print. Okay, let's go back. If you want to go back, just select another option and the slicer preview will be closed. It will roll back to the normal display. I think I have covered pretty much everything that you need to know to print a basic string structure. So in which scenario do you use the no frame option? Okay, let me give you an example. If you have your own frame, let's say yes, no, I'll turn this to no. Okay, I'm going to extract the frame in this figure and then design my own frame. To do that, I'll use mesh separate. The mesh separate function is going to separate all disconnected objects, disconnected at triangle level. So although the string are connected to the frame, to the object, they are considered disconnected because they are not connected at the triangle level. I click separate and separate all the objects. These are the objects that was extracted. A lot of strings, and then the important thing is the frame. Okay, and if we go back to my desktop, you will see many objects created. The one that I want is 02, mesh 02. All the rest, I can delete all the rest. Mesh 03, 01, 02. 01 is the heart. 02 is the frame that I want to show you how to do a customized setting. With this frame, what I want to do is I want to cut it. Mesh cut. Cut it so that I can make a customized frame. For example, I'll use the grid cut option and I'll let it cut in X direction, Y direction for 2 cuts. And for each cut, I can adjust the cutting position. I'll let it cut here. And for the second cutting plane, I will let it cut somewhere here. Okay, not very accurate. I'm just going to show you an example. Close cut, yes. Part number, no. Then I don't want to use any connector. Just cut it. This was cutting to several objects. And I'm going to open these objects. Cutting plane, mesh 2. Maybe object 1 and 3. Okay, this is object 3 and this is object 2. I'm going to merge it. File, merge. I just clicked shortcut Ctrl M. Bring them into one screen and save it as an STL. I'll call this STL user frame. Close it, close it, close it. And I'll close this as well. I'll close this guy. I still have the heart. I don't need the heart. What I'm going to do now is I'll open the heart shape and I'll open the customized frame. The frame is something like this. Then the heart shape, I'll just bring it, I'll bring it from the mesh folder, heart. The heart is in a different orientation, so I need to rotate it, making it lying down. Maybe negative 90 degrees, just to make it look good. Then click OK. Then I will merge the two windows. Ctrl M, 1, 2. Okay. The heart is a little bit small. Okay, let's merge it anyway. Then I'll use I'll use the object transform tool to make the heart in a proper size. Make the size uniform, make the size 50. Too big. 30. Just about right, maybe 20. Then I'll move the heart to the center of the frame area. Move X. Oh wait, this is Z. Move X 20, 40, yeah. Then move Y up 40. Okay, somewhere in the center. This is a customized frame, and that's our object. I need to move the heart down a little bit. Negative 20, negative 10, negative 10. That's just about right. Okay. So what I did just now is to to design a customized frame and then put it around our object of interest. When I'm done, click OK. Go to Mesh Slicer function. As previously, we have asked the LuBan function to generate a frame, a rectangle frame. So you see a new frame generated around it. We don't want the new frame. We will select no frame. Once you select no frame, you see as long as the lines are in the right direction, they can still generate strings. But in this case, if you turn to line in X, there won't be many strings generated. So the generation algorithm works like it first generates many long lines. As long as the lines hits the object, hits an obstacle, it will generate a string between the obstacles. Line X doesn't work well for this orientation. Line Y does. And the grid should work well, but when you choose a grid, the X lines will not work well. You can choose radial. Radial works. Okay, you can still customize something. And then after the customization, you just slice and print. So that is it. You can create even more radical designs. For example, if I open a cow model and then a duck model. Then I'm going to merge the two, select 1 and 2. Close the cow, close the duck. Where is the cow? The cow is very small. Then object transform. The first one is the duck, I think. So let's rotate the duck in the by Z axis by 90 degrees. Okay, this is roughly how I want to rotate. Then I'll select the cow object and then scale it up 10 times. So maybe 8 times, 7 times. And then I'll move the cow parallel to the duck. So move it in the Y direction, negative Y direction. 60, maybe 80, 100. Okay, that's good. That's roughly there. Then I need to move it up by, okay, so it's roughly there. In the X direction, okay, now done. I have placed two models side by side, and then I'm going to go to the slicer function. Out of print volume, no worries, I'll just increase the printer by a little bit. Okay. As you can see, strings can be generated on these two structures. If we change the string setting from radial to x-axis, you see the strings are now generated when you select no frame, of course, are now generated between these objects. And you can have, if you successfully print it, these two, you can have a duck connected by the cow through the strings. You may also turn on the frame, of course, and it will be like something like that. Okay, that is all. With these parameters and different configurations, you can generate some kind of variation of string structures and string art. In future, I'm going to add more options to the string function. Thank you very much for your attention.